Greetings, royal family. I am back. So we're doing episode 2 of Lifetime's little docu-series, Hopelessly in Love. So this one is Notorious B.I.G. and Faith. And we'll always love Big Papa. First of all, I just want to give Lifetime their props because this was a 2-hour long episode. Okay. So I'm here for that. So I was anticipating that, and I did report on my weekly show, WTF show, What the Friday, that Faith was not happy with Lifetime about this documentary. And I was curious to know why. And Faith did appear on Wendy Williams on Monday, and I'm going to do a separate video about that. So stay tuned. All right, so let's just get straight into it. First, I want to say, this documentary didn't provide me with any information that I didn't already know because I am a huge Notorious B.I.G. fan, that whole bad boy era, but it was still good to see, and I enjoyed this documentary. So they go into talking a little bit about Faith, where she's from. She was born in Florida, raised in Jersey, and I'll Be Sure, who was a R&B singer in like the late 80s, 90s. He was a part of that was he a part of New Jack Swing? I guess so. You could consider him a part of that New Jack Swing era. Anyway, so he put her on, I guess. And she says that she pretty much worked with him and she did a lot of like vocal layering for him. And at the time, she was a single mother. She had a child prior to her meeting Biggie. She did go to Fordham University. It's not what she really wanted, but it's what her mom kind of wanted for her. So after her first year, she did become pregnant and she ended up dropping out of school. Her passion, she always had a passion for music and for singing. She, kind of grew up in the church, but she always loved writing and singing. So when I'll Be Sure approached her after her dropping out of school and being a single mother, she needed money. So she was in the studio laying vocals down for him. And she eventually got into, she was introduced to Puffy, because Puffy and I'll Be Sure, they had like a music relationship. So, she met Puff and he asked her also to lay some vocals for him too. Now he was starting his new label and he pretty much wanted to sign her. He knew that she could sing. She had songwriting talents. They did leave out though, a lot in this documentary, and I'm surprised, but whatever, it was still good. Now, I wasn't expecting Stevie J to give any commentary, but then he was a part of Bad Boy. He was a producer, he was a songwriter, so he was a part of the Hitmakers and a part of Bad Boy's team. Now, Faith and Stevie J are currently married, as you all know. But again, I guess him being a huge part of Bad Boy and being Faith's current husband, he gave his commentary. So Faith meets Biggie. How they met? Great question. So Puffy put together this photo shoot and he had all of his artists, because again, he started Bad Boy, and he had all of his artists gathered together for one big photo shoot. So they were at the photo shoot, and Biggie, he was signed to Puff's label as well at the time. And that's where Biggie saw her. So, he approached her, he started talking to her. If you guys saw the movie Notorious, this pretty much lines up with the story in Notorious, which was good to see. It was good to see. So it seems like the movie Notorious was pretty much accurate. I mean, I saw it and it was for the most part, but they confirmed it. Anyway, so Misa Hilton also is on the documentary, and it was so good to see her because this is Puff's ex-girlfriend. She's also a very popular stylist in the music industry at that time, and she's, made a name for herself. And she's also the mother of Diddy's first son, Justin. So it was really good to see her because a lot of people who really don't really know about the whole Bad Boy era, it's easy for them to forget about some of the players, the movers and shakers who may not be or may not have such a huge name. And it was good to see Misa. And I just like the fact that they were pulling out some of the OGs for this one. So she talked about how Biggie and Faith were so in love when they met. And Faith got married I don't think she knew Biggie for 3 months, and they got married. She said that they went on to the courthouse. I forgot where exactly, but they went to the courthouse, they got married. Now at this time, Biggie is 21? And Faith is probably the same age as well. Again, she is a mother. And he had a daughter at the time as well, Tiana. And it's just so crazy now being older and looking back. They were all so young, like my goodness. Lance Rivera, he was on the documentary as well. And is he was Biggie's like business partner, but he's also a producer. He's like in the record business heavy. So he said that when he first found out that Biggie was married, he showed up at his apartment and he was looking for Big, and Faith was there. And he's just like, okay, who are you? He didn't really have any affiliation with Bad Boy at first. So he was kind of wondering, like, who are you? Like, where's Big at? So Faith says, I'm his wife. And is just like, what? So I guess he ended up running into Biggie on the street. And he says, there's this girl, that says that she's your wife, like she's up in your apartment, like what's going on? So he was like, yeah, that's my wife. Now, said the first thing that he thought when he heard this, that Biggie confirmed that he was married, is that Lil Kim is going to be pissed. So if you're not aware, yes, Biggie did marry Faith, but Lil Kim was in the picture long before Biggie met Faith. Kim was also from Brooklyn. The members of Junior Mafia, which was Biggie's like group. Now, fun fact, they were never signed to Bad Boy, even though I've gotten in debates back in the day about this. Junior Mafia was never signed to Bad Boy, nor was Lil Kim. Anyway, so yeah, like Lil Kim was like around the way girl, and Lil C's, he was giving his commentary. Of course, they could not have done this documentary without Lil C's. Lil C's was like Biggie's little brother, his best friend, his right hand man. So he even confirmed, like I said, if you followed the Bad Boy era, then you know that Biggie was, I don't know if you would consider it an exclusive relationship with Kim, but everybody knew that Kim was Big's girl at the time, so yeah, he was dealing with Lil Kim long before Faith came into the picture, and his closest friends confirmed it. So anyway, so Kim finds out that Big gets married, right? So she definitely was hurt. Now, as well as Lil C's, they're giving their account. So I guess they're kind of speaking for Lil Kim. It would have been nice if Lil Kim was a part of this documentary, but I think that she is still tight about the fact that she was portrayed in a not so good way, I guess, in the movie Notorious. And recently her and Notori Naughton were still kind of like going back and forth, which was crazy, but whatever. So she was hurt, she was upset. I think Lil C's was saying that she was looking for Big when she found out that Biggie was married to Faith. And Lil C's also says that she loves Big, and both of them were in love with each other. But Faith, he loved Kim, but he was in love with Faith. Like, this is kind of what Lil C's is alluding to. And I just thought, like, I guess this is what Biggie said. Biggie said he loved both of them, but he was in love with Faith, so I don't know. I love that they had, throughout the documentary, they had old school footage of him. They had pictures, they had audio. So that was refreshing to like hear his voice, and hear some authentic audio and see some authentic footage in the documentary. It wasn't commercial, is what I'm trying to say. So that was good, and as a fan, I definitely appreciated that. So Big, he started blowing up. Remember, Faith and him are married at this time. Big, he started blowing up, and Faith said he was away from home a lot. And, his first album, it was a huge success. Ready to Die was just a huge, huge, huge success. That's an album, to me, that's a classic. It's significant of a specific era in hip hop, and I still bump Ready to Die to this day. Okay, B.I.G. Now, Faith also says that when she met Lil Kim was cool, right? And because now Big is married, the relationship that he had with Lil Kim, it became strictly business, according to Faith anyway. Okay, we know that wasn't the case, but this is Faith's account, and she's giving her commentary. And Kim really wasn't feeling the fact that now all of a sudden the relationship with her and Big was just, just business. Like, you're my artist, you're my artist. That, again, we saw a little bit of that in the movie Notorious, where she got mad in the studio and because he married Faith, and she was just angry. They were recording in the studio, and she just came across as the character in Notorious. She just came across as like, what about me, Big? What about me? And I think Kim wasn't feeling that, and I can understand why. So Big was cheating, and Faith pretty much caught him every single time. All the time that he cheated, she caught him. And Un tells a story that he's never seen anyone able to listen to tones on a phone when you're dialing a number and memorize the tones and associate them with the correct numbers. So anytime Biggie was dialing a phone or something like that, she could like recognize the number pattern and she would call these women back. So I thought, like, girl, really? But that is kind of, that's some gifted type stuff. Like, that's really good. So she has a genius, I guess, for tones and things like that. It worked out in her music career. Anyway, so she rolled up on him. She caught him in the hotel as far as, him cheating. And he was in the room with another woman. And again, this is one of the scenes that was reenacted in the movie Notorious. Faith says that Big was in Virginia and he called her and he told her, like, look, if you call the room, I'm not going to be in the room. I'm letting one of my homeboys use the room because he has a girl. So Faith said that didn't sound right. Again, this was reenacted in the Notorious movie. She got somebody to watch her daughter, China, that's her firstborn, and she caught a flight from Brooklyn to Virginia Beach. Showed up at the hotel, knocked on the door, said she was housekeeping, opened the door. The girl opened the door, and Faith proceeded to be physical with her, okay? And she said that Big just looked at her he's sitting on the bed, he was just shaking his head and he looked at her and he was just like, why would you do something like that? Like, what are you doing? And, he said that he didn't even do anything with her. And she told him, well, you should have. And then, she went back home and they didn't break up, but she caught a flight and she went back home. So that was interesting. And like I said, it's good to see that her stories are aligning with what took place in Notorious. But again, me being a fan, when Notorious came out, to me, it was like 99.9% accurate. So again, good to see. Moving on to Biggie and Pac, okay? Now, Tupac rhymes with got, okay? We got to be careful on these YouTube streets here, at Quad Studios. So this was the night that Junior Mafia and Biggie, all of them were in the studio. Little C's sees that, Pac and his crew are coming into the studio. So they're like, yeah, Pac, come up. So Big and C's are going down to meet him. And then Pac ends up getting got. He gets robbed and he gets got. And Tupac went on to blame Biggie and his crew and all of Bad Boy that they set him up. Okay, now this was the start of the whole East versus West because Pac was very vocal. He had to have multiple surgeries. I think he got like 5 gots, to him and to the body. And Big actually went up to the hospital when, this happened to Pac, and he was there with his mother. He was there with Tupac's mom. Now, if you guys remember a couple of years ago, Funkmaster Flex, he debunked this accusation that Bad Boy had something to do with what happened to Pac at Quad Studios. And he said that Tupac made all of that up. Tupac was lying. Tupac knew who it was that did this to him. And he just blamed Biggie and Junior Mafia and Bad Boy, because for whatever reason. And Flex caught a lot of backlash for that. Put it in the comments if you remember. Like, people were saying, like, Flex, why are you coming out with this now? You starting trouble, you causing beef. But we have to remember, if you are a hip-hop head like myself, Flex and Biggie were tight, even before Biggie blew up, so they were real close. So that was his homeboy. And, I guess him being a DJ and being like a staple in the hip-hop scene, my God, from Hot 97 to the Tunnel nightclub, like he was real big in the hip hop scene, obviously, right? So seeing all of this go down and he knows the truth, he probably just felt so unsettled in his spirit for so many years. So he felt compelled to come out and say whatever it is that he said. So he caught a lot of backlash for that. So the true story goes that Tupac know exactly who did that to him. And he lied and blamed Biggie and, Junior Mafia and Bad Boy. So we progress on to the Source Awards, right? This is the infamous Source Awards, 1995. This is when the East Coast and West Coast beefs got more intense and it was like serious. This is when ish got real. So Suge Knight gave his infamous speech on stage and he pretty much dissed Puffy and Bad Boy. He says that if any artists out there that want to come to a record label where you don't have to worry about the executive producer being all on the video, all on the record. It's crazy how I know this, right? Because like I said, this was like a specific time in my life. Anyway, come to Death Row Records, And then Puffy, he went up to accept an award as well. And he didn't diss Suge Knight. He gave props to Suge Knight, Death Row, Snoop Dogg, all of them. So he took the high road. And I think this for Puffy as well, this is when he realized, like, there's some real street dudes that's in hip hop, because Diddy, I don't want to say that he was cookie cutter. Like, don't get it twisted. Diddy has his squad and his crew, and he got a lot of certain types of people around him. But at this time, he was just like, dancing, Diddy bopping in the video. He just wanted to have fun. He wanted to have a good time. He wasn't a street dude at all. Diddy was not in or of the streets. So this was kind of like, whoa, So Biggie was still, always on the road after that. He traveled. He didn't let it shake him up. And this is when like the media started going crazy, like East versus West Coast having people pick sides. We know how that goes. You have fans of people, they automatically create a beef and they pick sides and the fans go at it. And it just creates an atmosphere of like division and it's just too much. So Biggie, after that, Biggie was still always on the road. And Faith pretty much got tired of it all. So the fights between them got more and more, intense. And Faith said that she ended up moving out of their Brooklyn apartment. Now, Wendy Williams was featured, of course, because it's funny because I was wondering if they were going to incorporate her at all in the documentary. And of course, because again, Wendy Williams was like, you see how we have like Twitter, we have Instagram, we have these blogs, we have, content creators on YouTube. Wendy was like the voice. There were other radio stations, but nobody did it like Wendy. You know what I mean? Anyway, so she did an interview with Lil Kim, and I do remember this. Okay, so Kim, she's talking about Biggie as if they were boyfriend and girlfriend. So, listen, we all know what it was, but I guess for business, they had to keep up the facade that Big and Faith were husband and wife, and Lil Kim was the side chick, I guess. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Puffy had his hand in that as far as marketing is concerned. So in true Wendy fashion, you know how Wendy is. Listen, she's a lot more tame now than she was on the radio. She asked Kim about Faith. What about Faith? And Kim is just like, I don't know, like, they're not even together. Do you see her with a wedding ring on? Like, she basically said that Faith is not wearing her wedding ring and they're not even together. So now Faith says that that's what caused her to think that something was up with her and Biggie. Not only the way that Kim was talking about Biggie in that interview, she was showing so much love. You know how Kim is. She always, I love Big, that's my baby and all this other stuff. But when she said that Big and Faith were not together and she's not even wearing her wedding ring, something clicked in Faith's head, she said. And now, listen, I don't believe that Faith had no clue who Lil Kim was. I don't believe that Faith believed or knew that Lil Kim was just Biggie's artist. I don't believe that. There are too many stories. There's too many witnesses. There's too many people saying who Kim was to Big and who Big was to Kim. So if this information or if this relationship brewed and developed, I should say, prior to Faith, you coming along, you mean to tell me you heard no whispers, no nothing? This is when you realize? I don't know. I don't believe it. So after, after all of that, like, Faith said she didn't know, and she said she always looked at Lil Kim like she was a little sister. And she said that Big wanted Faith and Kim to have a close relationship. He kind of wanted Faith to kind of develop her as an artist, help her out, look after her. I'm not feeling it. And Faith said that all along I was looking out for her, and she was sleeping with my man. Granted, yes, Biggie and Faith were married, but I'm not buying that, Faith. I'm sorry. And maybe she is doing that to, I guess, keep the peace. I can respect it. But sweetie, those of us who grew up during that era, we already know what it is. And thanks to Auntie Wendy, she definitely kept us in the loop. Vibe magazine kept us in the loop. The Source magazine kept us in the loop. Hot 97, everything that was going on there. Wendy Williams. So for these newer kids on the block, right, they'll take that and run with it. You understand what I'm trying to say? But we know what's up. So we move on to another one of Biggie's women, Charli Baltimore. Now, I have to say, even though she kind of got the short end of the stick, I guess, but still, I'm glad that Charli Baltimore was in this documentary, because a lot of people had no clue that Biggie was even in a relationship with Charli Baltimore. Fun fact, remember when Biggie got into the car accident? Little C's was driving. Again, this was depicted in Notorious, and it was factual. Biggie hurt his leg. He got into a car accident. And in the Hypnotized video, you see him dancing with the cane. He got into a car accident and he hurt his leg. Charli Baltimore was actually in the truck with him when this accident happened. I'm surprised that she didn't bring that up. Maybe, it's probably like miscellaneous information. But they were definitely together, like relationship. They were dating for a while. They were exclusive. So, there wasn't like social media back then. So everything wasn't plastered on the gram or plastered on Twitter or Facebook. You know what I mean? So at this point, Faith, she's gone, right? She moved out. She's tired of Biggie cheating. She's tired of all of this foolishness. So he pretty much moves on and he starts to date Charli Baltimore, who's striking, like, she just resembles Faith so much. So we see that Biggie had a type. Anywho, well, I won't even go there. Anyway, so she's gone. She moved out. And she was avoiding all communication with Biggie at this point, okay? She didn't want to talk to him. She didn't even want to be at any of the events because she was still signed to Bad Boy. She didn't want to be at any of the events because she didn't want to run into him. She was just like done. So while he was on the road, he met Charli Baltimore. And there were talks of them back in the day, but, like I said, most people didn't know about them. So she tells her story, Charli Baltimore. She looks amazing. I know that she was on... Growing Up Hip Hop New York, I started to watch, but then I was just like, I'm done. So her daughters were on the show. Anyway, so Charli Baltimore is just saying that how charming Big was. And, she met him, I think, outside of a hotel or something like that. And she was just so enamored by his sweet, charming personality, because everybody says the same thing about Big. He's funny. He likes to laugh and joke. He is charismatic, and you could see that. He's very, very charming. And, they started hanging out more and more and more, and they ended up being in a relationship, So Faith and Big are still married, okay? Listen, they remained married until his passing. So they're still married, and he definitely was exclusive with Charli. She ended up in Charli Baltimore was in the Get Money video. Remember that song, Get Money? The song that Biggie and Lil Kim have together. So now, Faith says she passed on the video because at this point, they were at odds, her and Biggie, and she just didn't want to be bothered with him. Listen, if she's saying it, I guess that's her truth, but whatever. So she passed on it, and Biggie was messy. Because that song had Lil Kim in it. Charli Baltimore is his girlfriend. And in the video, I don't know if you guys remember, but when I first saw it, it dawned on me that Charli Baltimore was supposed to be Faith. Like when he was throwing stuff out and kicking her out of the house. That was supposed to be Faith. I got that at the very tender age of however old I was. I was a tween then, so who knows, right? So Charli, again, she was supposed to depict Faith. And I don't know. Biggie, you messy. Biggie, you was a messy one. But it's like he was able to get away with so much because people loved him and, these women allowed it. I don't know. I wonder what the set of that video was like. That I do want to know. Like with Lil Kim being there and Charli Baltimore being in the video. Now, Charli Baltimore said that she wasn't trying to make fun at Faith, or it wasn't a jab at Faith or whatever. But I'm sure on the set there were talks and people were cracking jokes and like, yo, Big, you wow for this. Like, you know what I mean? People talk, especially when you're amongst your crew and you're amongst your people. Yo, Biggie, you a mess. Like I said, when I initially saw the video, I was like, ooh, he coming at Faith. And, it was all over like the media and in, magazines and things like that and all over the radio that Faith and him were separated. They were still married and he was dating Charli Baltimore. So, of course, it looks like you throwing shade at Faith. Anyway, so Faith, let's move on to Faith talking about meeting Tupac. So Faith was not working at the time, really. Again, she was avoiding all bad boy tours and little shows because she wanted no parts of Biggie. She didn't want to be around anybody a bad boy, because I guess they were going to ask her, what about Biggie? And she didn't want anyone trying to kind of like, oh, Big misses you, because Misa, he would talk to Misa Hilton and Misa would tell Faith, Big looking for you. And so she just wanted to separate herself from the bad boy family completely. So she headed out to the West Coast, to do some writing for a few artists, and she wanted to work with a few producers. And again, she didn't want to be around, bad boy at all. So she went out with her girls one night and she said that she ran into Tupac, who said that he wanted to do a record with Faith. Okay. Faith, we're going to have to talk about this, sis. We really are going to have to talk about this because this is the same man who accused Biggie and all of Bad Boy of doing what happened to him at Quad Studios. And he blamed Biggie. Like, Biggie took a lot of heat for that, so it was a lot of beef. And I don't know. I just don't think that it was a good idea for her to agree to do anything with him. Or exchange numbers. So she said that they exchanged numbers and because Tupac had went to jail prior to this, like after that whole Quad Studio situation, Tupac ended up going to jail. So at this point he was out of jail. So they exchanged numbers and she was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we could work together and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think she probably will never admit it, but I think that she was hurt and mad at all the cheating Biggie was doing and that he was exclusive with Charli Baltimore. So she probably did this to kind of make him a little bit jealous or to kind of get his attention. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's the case, but we've all done that in relationships. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm too old for the games, but still, you just do stuff to try to like make your little boyfriend jealous, or guys do stuff to make their girlfriends a little jealous. So she may not admit that, but that's what I think. So she said that she needed the money. She wasn't really doing anything on the East Coast, so that's why she went out to the West Coast. And yeah, she said, okay, so this is what I do like. Okay, after her talking more and more, she said that she gave Big a call and she told him that she ran into Tupac. And she says that, he wants to do music with her. He wants to work with her. Now, she says, she didn't say what he said. She didn't say what his response was. But Faith says that he didn't tell her not to do it. But you called him, sweetie. You called him because obviously you knew that there was static there. And you did have a conscience. You called him to see how he would feel, and you didn't disclose what he said. Only thing you said is that he didn't tell her not to do it. So I don't know. So anyway, next day or 2 days later, she's still in LA. Pop goes to pick her up for the studio session because, you know, they're supposed to be working on a song. And she says she gets to the studio and Corrupt and Suge Knight were in the studio. And she says she's looking around like, what the hell? And that's when she realized that she was in a Death Row studio. Like, this is Death Row. Corrupt, Daz, Suge Knight, you know, Snoop, Pac. So she's just like, oh, snap, this is Death Row. So she said that she was scared. You know, she was really nervous. Now, remember, when the situation happened in 95 at the Source Awards with, you know, and I remember Snoop Dogg, too. Snoop Dogg was like, East Coast ain't got no love for Death Row. And I'm just like, wow, he's come a long way. He's like, well, got in. Y'all. Oh, God, the 90s were... That just ruined the night. Like, that kind of ruined the 90s as far as rap is concerned. You know what I'm saying? Because then after that, the beefs just got more and more intense. And it just became so normal to be beefing in hip hop. Anyway, see, I'm going down memory lane. So anyway, Faith is in the studio. She realized that it's Death Row. Like I was saying, the Source Awards, right? That's where I was. When Suge Knight gave his infamous speech, Tupac wasn't signed to Death Row at that time, right? Tupac went to jail, came out of jail, Suge Knight bailed him out, and then he was signed to Death Row after that. So Faith wasn't really thinking or expecting to walk into a studio and be chilling with Death Row. You understand? So she said, like she said, she was scared and nervous. But again, Faith, you know, these are the same people who diss Puffy, they diss Bad Boy, you know, and the entire East Coast on stage at the Source Awards. So at this point, this is when Faith realized she messed up. You know what I mean? So again, she said she was scared. She said she went into the booth, she recorded a hook, and she just wanted to get the heck out of the studio. So later on that night, the way the arrangement was that she was going to come and get the check later on that night. So later on that night, she goes to the hotel where Pac and all of them are staying, and she's in the lobby waiting. So I guess she hits him up, and she's like, you know, hey, you know what I'm saying? I'm waiting in the lobby. Pac said that he had to wait on his manager to come bring the check. So she waited, and then he tells her, you know, just come up to the room. So he convinces her to come up to the hotel room. So Faith goes, and she's waiting for Pac's manager to arrive with the money. So Pac tells her that, you know, he's talking, and he's saying, you know, I know Biggie set me up. And she's just like, oh my God, I want to get my check and get out of here. And she's just like, you know, why do you think he did that? Like, you guys are cool. And she was like, you know, Pac, you know that Big was at the hospital right after this happened to you. He was with your mother. You know that. So, you know, this, I guess because Faith wasn't like street smart, you know what I mean? She just, maybe she was young. I guess she was naive and she didn't really realize what was going on. You know what I'm saying? But whatever. So she says that Tupac told her in front of all of these guys, you know, in the hotel room, that she needed to service him to get her money. Like, he just disrespected her. And trust me, I cleaned it up. That's not the verbiage that was used, but I cleaned it up. And she never got her money. And then she said that she got out of there. She was humiliated. She was scared. And she realized that she was used to get back at Biggie for what happened in the studio, because Pac was really adamant and going with the narrative that, you know, Biggie set him up. Now, the New York Times, okay, wrote an article saying that Faith sold her wedding ring and Tupac took her shopping. This is the New York Times. See, this is, even back then, you know what I mean? A lot of these news outlets are not credible. First of all, this was supposed to be one of the most credible publications, like, right? The New York Times. I mean, we know better now, but back then. And I remember saying, what the heck does the New York Times care? Or why do they care? Or what do they have to do with anything pertaining to hip hop? Like, I think I was shocked, like, when this was going around. And Big was really, really hurt by this, because this is when the picture was released of Faith and Biggie in the club. And Faith looked like she was inebriated, put it that way. But everyone kind of spun the narrative that Pac and Faith had just finished doing whatever, and that's why she looked like that. So Faith says that Big was hurt, and I can understand why him being hurt. And I think it was because not necessarily he thought that she might have stepped out. Of course, that stings too, because he know he was doing his dirt, right? But I think it was because of who it was with. You know, Pac and Big were friends. You know what I mean? They were really cool. They were close. They spent time together. They were like brothers. And then after Pac accused Big of, you know, whatever at Quad Studios, that hurt him. And on top of that, him and Faith are not together. Yeah, he's doing him. He moved on. And then this surfaces. So, I don't know. So Faith ended up, you know, I guess they kind of got past that. And they ended up communicating. And like she said, you know, the love was always there, even though they had their fights and, you know, he wasn't faithful. She said she never stepped out on him. She ended up going on the road with Big and Junior Mafia, and she says that Lil Kim was there. And about a month after, she found out that she was pregnant. This is Big's first son, who is CJ, Christopher Jr. And yeah, she finds out that she's pregnant. And you know, Charli Baltimore is still Biggie's girlfriend. Faith is aware of this. Lil Kim and Biggie are still messing around. Faith is aware of this as well. And she says that Charli Baltimore actually called Faith on the phone to confront her or to confirm if she was pregnant. And Faith said that she was clutching her pearls because she said, like, she knows that Big didn't tell you to call me, you know. So she said she was kind of taken aback by that. Then they move on to here's where it gets messy. Here we go. So Faith goes on to talking about how she was pregnant at this point, and Biggie was still not being faithful. And shortly after this, you know, Faith, she gets a phone call that Lil Kim was in the studio with Big, and Faith makes her way up to the studio. And Faith says, this is what Faith says, that she jumped on Lil Kim while her back was turned. Like, she walked in the studio and Lil Kim was like sitting at a desk writing, which means her back was turned. So you snuck her. That's not how we do it in Jersey, Faith. You giving Jersey a bad name. But again, you were born in Florida. Mm-hmm. And she jumped on her. Mind you, Faith is pregnant. She jumped on Kim, and she says that she was pounding her, fighting her, you know, beating her up. And I think it was her manager, Faith's manager at the time, says that Lil Kim wig was snatched, literally. And they took Lil Kim's wig back to Faith's house after the altercation. And her manager is just laughing as she's telling the story. Maybe this is what Faith did not want in the documentary, but if you didn't want it in the documentary, sis, you shouldn't have said it, because her statement was that she wasn't happy with the documentary because she doesn't want to open old wounds and rehash old beefs and stuff. But you said it, sis. I mean, you said it. Your manager said it too. So I hope Lil Kim doesn't say anything about this. But then again, I do. At the end of the documentary, I was like, I really kind of want Lil Kim to say something. But anyway, that was one of many fights that Faith was talking about. So we move on to the infamous diss track, Hit 'Em Up. Okay? If you know Tupac's song, Hit 'Em Up, you've seen the video. It was a parody of Biggie and Diddy and all of Bad Boy. And Pac is just going in. Okay? Going in. So you know exactly what that song gives. Going around saying that he slept with Faith. That was is this still recording? Okay. That was first of all, the first line. The first line of Hit 'Em Up. It's like, wait a minute, I wasn't ready. So most people, you know, didn't know that Faith was pregnant. So when Hit 'Em Up came out, she was doing interviews and she was saying that, you know, she is pregnant and no, it's not Tupac's baby. You know, I've always been faithful, even though we are separated, I've always been faithful to Big. So the rumors came out that it was Tupac's baby. Fast forward, Tupac passes. We already know it happened in LA. It was a drive-by, and we already know that it just changed the climate of hip hop. It just started to get so it just started to get bad. Like, it really did start to get bad, because this was the first time in my life, being a lover of music, that hip hop turned dangerous. You know what I mean? I don't think, you know, Fab Five Freddy and you know what I'm saying? Like Run DMC and I don't think it wasn't beef like that with them back in the day. You get what I'm trying to say? Like KRS-One and this one. Rakim wasn't going around shooting people. You get what I'm trying to say? So this was like really when things kind of shift. Put it in the comments if you remember exactly where you were when you heard that Tupac was killed. So, like I said, this is when ish started to get real heavy with this documentary. So CJ, Big, and CJ was born. That's Biggie and Faith's son. So Faith had another run-in with Lil Kim, she says. She says Faith showed up to Biggie's house one night, and Kim was there, and they pretty much began to fight. You know, she says, you know, like I always do, you know, I was just punching her. And I just really wish Faith would have left all of that pounding. You know, she was like, you know, doing the pounding motions and like saying that she was pounding Lil Kim. I just think you could have left that out. You know what I mean? Like you could have just said, you know, we got into an altercation. You understand? Anyway, so according to Faith, she said, you know, she went to his house in Teaneck. Shout out to Jersey. Okay. Bergen County. She went to Teaneck and she opened the garage door because it was broken or something like that. So she goes into the room and she's like feeling around in the dark. This sounds weird, right? And she says she feels some, you know, Lil Kim, I guess. She flips the light on and it's Lil Kim. They start fighting. And Biggie said, she said that Biggie told her that he was asleep and he didn't know that Lil Kim got into bed with him. Listen, you got to lie a little bit better than that, sir. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to lie to me, like, make it believable. Like, lie to me good, you know? So Lil Kim ended up leaving after her and Faith got into the fight. And Faith said that hours later, you know, she stayed at the house, and hours later, she goes out to see that her truck was scratched up, like, all the way around. So she says that it was Lil Kim that did it, you know? So moving along, because I don't even want to stay on that. Like, I have my thoughts on that. So now going back to Cali, this is what I titled this section. So Big was promoting his second album, Life After Death, classic. And so he went to LA. Like, he said that he wanted to show LA that he has love for them. He said he knows that people in LA got love for him. Now, mind you, Tupac died in September. I think he died in March. So I wonder, I don't remember what time, like what month exactly he went to Cali. I know he was there for was he there for like about a month, like 3 to 4 weeks? Anyway, so he's promoting his album, and, you know, like I said, he just wants to show love. And a couple of people, they showed it in the documentary, but a lot of people was telling Big, like, look, I don't think it's a good idea for you to go to Cali, you know, and they left this part out, but Puffy had a lot to do with Big going to Cali as well. He kind of hyped it up and encouraged him to go to Cali also, but a lot of people were saying, you know, no, you know, I don't think it's a good idea, because remember, Tupac had just died. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like the voice of the West Coast at the time, you know, so people were still mourning his death. So Biggie had good intentions. You know, he was going to radio shows and things like that. They didn't talk about the song Who Shot Ya? It's Lifetime. I didn't expect them to. Anyway, because Big said he recorded that way before the situation happened at Quad Studios. So, you know, the West Coast, they weren't feeling that. So they were offended. They were like, what are you doing out here? Like, the nerve of this guy, you know? So the Soul Train Awards, you know, some people were against him going to the Soul Train Awards, but, you know, Puffy had money to make. Biggie had an album to promote. You know, they had to do what they had to do. So, again, they were still mourning the loss of Tupac. And there was a after party after the Soul Train Awards. So everyone, you know, is pulling out after the after party. So they go, you know, Faith said that she saw Big and they were just kind of looking at each other, but she didn't go up to him. So she said, he was just talking about building his family, and he wants to have his family together. So when they go back on the East Coast, that was his plan. So she said she didn't talk to him that night, but they were making eyes at each other. Again, perfectly depicted in the Notorious movie. And the after party is over. Because again, it was the Soul Train Awards and it was the after party. So the after party is over. Everybody is leaving and everybody's pulling out. Interesting, they should have had Jermaine Dupri on here also. Jermaine Dupri had a show on Lifetime, Rap Battle or something like that. So I'm shocked that I didn't see him, because Jermaine Dupri was actually he was in the car with Biggie and he got out, I think, because his car came. He was waiting for his car to come. So he was in the truck with C's and Big. And I think he said that his manager rolled up on him. This is not a part of the documentary. I'm just saying what Jermaine Dupri was talking about. His car came, so he got out the car and got into his car, which was behind Big's truck. So Jermaine Dupri said that if he would have stayed and rode with Biggie, he would have been in that car too. Like I said, they should have had Jermaine Dupri give his account, because he was cool with Biggie too. He was cool with a lot of people that most people probably wouldn't even think. Anyway, so they're pulling out and they're driving off or whatever, and then they're at the Wilshire. They're at the light. Diddy, what's his name? Stevie J. They're in one car and behind them is Big. So they go past the light and Big stops at the light because the light turns red. So he's hollering at some chicks. Little C's is there. He's in the back seat. And a car pulls up and basically, shoots up Biggie's truck. So I know that this situation hit everybody hard. This is getting real long. I know that this situation hit everybody hard, but I always felt a way for Little C's, because he was in the back seat. Like, he was right there. And his homeboy, I can't remember his name. Dang. His homeboy that was driving. But Little C's, well, both of them, Little C's was right there. Like, that was his big brother, his best friend. Like, they were raised together in the same neighborhood. And he was right there. He watched his friend take his last breaths right there. So I always wonder, are you getting counseling? Anyway, let me wrap this up. As you can see, like I said, this was an era of my life that music was just popping. So anyway, let me move on. So after, everybody's at the hospital, so he was pronounced dead. His body was returned back to Brooklyn. And do y'all remember where y'all was when you heard that Biggie died? I do. I will spare the story. I remember it like it was yesterday to a T. It was a Sunday morning. I turned on Hot 97 because I was ready to listen to the countdown. Lisa Evers and the Street Sweepers used to always come on Sundays. And then I heard Angie Martinez, Lisa Evers, Flex. So I'm saying to myself, they're not normally on. What's going on? Mr. C, who was Biggie's DJ. So I'm like, what's going on? So I'm listening, and then they're talking. Everybody sounds all somber. And then they said, if you're just tuning in, Christopher Wallace, a.k.a. Notorious B.I.G., was killed last night. I was just like, it was a Sunday morning. I will never forget it. And for the rest of the day, they just played nothing but, Biggie songs on the radio. So put it in the comments if you remember where you were when you heard. So, I still listen to the Life After Death album. And now, like I said, that I'm older, it's so crazy. He was only 24 years old. When you're 14, I think I was 14. No, 13 going on 14. And it's just like, you think 24 is so old. But, when you're in your 30s, you just look back and you're like, my gosh. So, of course, it hit everybody hard. You know what I mean? And everybody gave their accounts and stuff like that. And everyone was getting emotional. And, moving along, present day, Faith and Stevie, they're married. They've been friends for over 20 years because Stevie J is affiliated with Bad Boy. And, yeah, they seem to be okay. You know what I mean? I'm just curious to know what exactly Faith didn't like about this documentary. Like, I thought it was a great trip down memory lane. As you can tell, this review is mad long. Again, I'm a huge Bad Boy, especially Biggie's, huge Biggie fan. So this was a great trip down memory lane, and there isn't anything that I didn't know already. I just wish that Faith would have left out, the Lil Kim incidents, even if you just kind of glaze over it. Maybe that's what she was upset about, but you said it, So Faith was on Wendy Williams Monday. So I am going to do a separate video on that and upload that. Royal family, make sure you have your notifications on. Thank you for taking this trip down memory lane with your girl. Be sure to like this video, hit the thumbs up button. Get down in the comments. Let's talk. Let me know if you saw it. What did you think? I thought it was put together very well. Biggie's mother was upset too. And I'm wondering, like, what they could have done was they could have focused more. They could have talked about the street in Brooklyn being named after him. His daughter wasn't in there, but then again, none of the children were. It's like, I wish they could have had her daughter in there, but she seems to kind of keep herself very separate, and she's doing her own thing. She has a clothing store in Brooklyn, Notorious with 2 S's. So she's keeping her father's legacy alive. But get that in the comments, Royal family. Let me know what you think. Be sure to like this video. Thank you so much for rocking out to the end. Like I said, as you can see, this was a good trip down memory lane, and I really enjoyed this documentary. So I will meet you down in the comments. Keep it respectful. Until next time, Royal family. Peace.